We're live. We are live. Hello. There's already a few people in the chat I
There
can
is.
see. So I'm just going to quickly say hello to the people that are here, and then I'll get into the introduction. We've got Sandra at Spirit of Avalon. Hello, Sandra. Lynn is here. Hello, Lynn. Antoinette of Intuitive Tarot and Jewelry is here. And hello, Anne, my love. How are you? And knock once for yes. Is that you, Fitz? Hi, Fitz, if that's you. And Kim. Hi, Kim. Lovely to see you all. If I can see there's more people watching than in the chat, but don't be shy. Feel free to say hello and to get stuck in the chat. Everyone's pretty friendly here.
We don't
So,
bite,
well,
do we?
if you want us to, we might. But yeah,
Only in
so
October.
welcome to the Bear's Cave. We have reprised it. I literally cannot remember the last time we did a Bear's Cave, at least a couple of years, I think. And we are here to celebrate this channel, Kelly Bear, the channel, as an entity, being 7. It's its 7th
Whoop, whoop,
birthday,
whoop.
7th anniversary. I'm like, what? What? How did that happen? I feel like I blinked and suddenly 7 years has gone by. So yeah, we're getting up there in the numbers on old Tarot Tube, and because it's the 7th anniversary and it falls on the 7th of the month, and this year also happens to be a 7 year. It's the year of the Chariot card. That is the sort of collective card of the year for everyone. And I was like, I know what we'll talk about, because Simon agreed to do the live before we agreed on a subject to talk about. And within, like, I think I came back pretty quick. I was like, oh, I know what to talk about. I said, how about the sevens in the tarot, including the Chariot and the sevens of the suit? And 7 just generally is a number within the tarot. And Simon very kindly said, yes, that sounds like a great idea. So that's what we're here to do today. So Simon, do you want to say hello? Who needs no introduction, really?
Well, you don't know, do you? Hi, everyone. And yeah, just to say officially, happy channelversary. I just when you were saying that, because I found you in 2016, but late 2016. So I found Tarot Tube in August of 2016.
Okay.
But back then, I mean, it wouldn't have even occurred to me that your channel was relatively new. I just thought you were somebody that was always there, like lots of the channels that, well, I say lots of them, there wasn't a lot of channels back then, was there, really, doing the whole tarot stuff? But you was one of the first channels I ever saw. And I remember seeing a few American ones first, and then I was like, oh, wow, a Brit girl, this is going to be cool. Um, but it just feels like, in some ways, we say, don't we, 7 years? Wow, where's 7 years gone? But then sometimes when I think back to those very early days, it feels like a lifetime ago. I
Yeah.
feel like I watched you for a long time before I actually met you in person, but didn't really, because we met. Well, we were just talking about that before we went live, weren't we?
Mm.
When we met up and stuff, which is like 5 years ago nearly.
Yeah, the very beginning. It was like the 5th or 6th of February 2018 is our friendiversary, our 5th friendiversary. But yeah, I find that funny that you thought that my channel had been around for ages, like a bit like part of the
Yeah,
first one. The thing is, I had been around on Tarot Tube for about 3 or 4 years at that point, but as like someone who was watching. So I was watching, interacting in comments and things under Kellyanne Maddox, who at the time was the Four Queens. Kelly Fitz of The Truth in Story. She was obviously doing her regular Saturday night live. So I was often, my husband was, Simon was away DJing on Saturday night. So that would give me some company. If I wasn't going along to the club night, then I would be home and I would be, in Kelly's live chats. So I had been around, but yeah, as a creator, a content creator, yeah, I hadn't been around a huge amount of time when you had started watching me. I'm still pretty wet behind the ears. I still feel wet behind the ears, to be honest, when it
no,
comes to
I
making
think
videos.
I think as well when you, because I'd never used YouTube at all. I
Mm,
knew of its existence, but I only went on to search, see if there's anything about that particular deck. But
mm,
then, of course, once you're putting words in associated with tarot and oracle, then all you get suggested. So you used to appear quite a lot you
You
know,
really?
in terms of suggested videos. So I just thought, yeah, that there was you, Lou Valcourt,
Yeah.
Alvine, and Racine. What's I can't
Yeah,
remember.
racing. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't
racing.
remember her channel. Owl Moon Woman or something like that. Owl Moon. Yeah, and there was a few. Lou, yeah, Lou, that used to pop up quite a lot in those days. So yeah, and you was I think you might have introduced me to Deviant Moon. I
Oh,
think
really?
did you do a walk through a Deviant Moon? I'm sure, yeah. And that I think
Yeah.
that was like the buy moment watching
Oh
you talk
wow!
about
I might
Deviant
have helped
Moon.
kick off your Patrick Valenza obsession. That's amazing. That's something I'm proud of that. So yeah, there's a lot like Tarot Tube's really grown since then. It's really expanded, and I feel like there's lots of little pockets of it, all like different areas of it, which is cool. But I can see more and more people have rolled in. I'm just going
Hi
to do another
everyone.
quick run through and then I'll get started on the topic. I just want to make sure I'm like saying hi to people that are coming in. So I can see Laura of Aquamarine 18 Tarot and Books is here. Alicia Jolly, hello. Oh, it's both Lil and Fitz of Not Once for Yes, the spooky podcast. Highly recommend. Elspeth, hello. Zenden Tarot, Nancy is here. Crohn's Intuition. Patrice, hello Patrice. Laurie Kramer, Pamela. Hello, Pamela. Who else have we got? I've seen Rosemary of Good Journeys Tarot, Butterfly Moore, Robin of Toadstool Tarot. In hell! Oh my goodness, guys! Heather Foley. I'm Lovejoy. That's Linda's here. Crescent Dreams Tarot. Hello, Crescent Dreams. I've recently discovered Crescent Dreams Tarot channel and I'm very much enjoying it. April Harmon, Sounds of Ocean. Hello. Chris is there. Chris, Elemental Gartabancy. Goodness me, Inked Witchy Tarot. Goodness, I am a little overwhelmed at how many people have come in. Iridescent Sea Designs have just popped in, and Kim Mee's Divination Station as well. Hello. If anyone else pops in, I hope I don't miss you coming in, but I'm going to start switching over to our topic at hand, which I'm sure you're all here for. I hope you've got a notebook and pen, all of you, and a nice cup of tea or coffee or something to wet your whistle. You have. I've got my notebook. Well, I've got my notes and my pad and a pen and a pencil. I've got some piles of cards next to me, which you might have seen a little teaser of on my my Instagram a couple of hours ago. So, 2023, the Chariot year. Obviously, last year coming off the back being a lovers year, and that's purely for anyone who doesn't know what that means. I'm sure most of you do. I don't want to be patronising, but if people don't like, what does that mean? How do you work out what the card of the year is, sort of collectively? Then all we're doing is we are adding up the numbers in the year and then finding the major arcana from that. So for this year, 2 + 2 + 3 is 7, being the Chariot. And that, as Simon had mentioned to me when we were talking about what to mention in this video, is also linked with the Tower, because 1 + 6 is 7. But I thought we would maybe not necessarily touch on that, just because we've got a lot to get through today, but that is something to bear in mind. So we're just going to talk about the Chariot at first. Then we're going to discuss 7 as a number, sort of numerologically, and then we're going to go through the 7s in each of the courts, of each of the suits in order, so all of the elemental suits. And so we're just going to start with the Chariot, and I'm going to show. We're not going to look at Thoth, we're just looking at Marseille and Smith-Waite. And the part of the reason, obviously I wanted Simon on because he's a good friend of mine and we haven't done a bear cave for ages, but also I am very much a Marseille girl these days, but Simon is known for his love of the Smith-Waite and collecting as many iterations of the Smith-Waite, and is a bit of a sort of a Smith-Waite fanboy. So I thought it'd be really nice to come at it from those two angles. So of course we have the Chariot, or I don't know, I should have checked the lighting on this. The Chariot from, this is my Centennial Smith-Waite. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with this image. And then we've got the Marseille. This is the CBD Marseille, being the Camwan Bendov by Johan Bendov, which is a nice, clear, simple Marseille deck for studying. This was my original study, Marseille. So yeah, it's an image most of us will be familiar with, and I'm just going to go through some keywords for both the sort of positive and negative, or in shadow. So words that are associated with it are willpower, success and victory, progress. So you've got that movement with the chariot, dominance, confidence, ambition. Sometimes speed is mentioned, and mentioning of, if it shows up in a reading, how it can speed up the events of that reading if it's pertinent to that reading. Travel, balance. This is where you get the two horses, the black and the white horses, or sphinxes, or lions, depending on the card. Action, fame and ego are also things that are mentioned alongside the chariot, or around the chariot. And then for a sort of obviously we're not going to cover every single keyword or meaning, just FYI, we're just giving a general overview. And then in shadow we have things like brute force and aggression, failure, or losing the race, as it were, missed opportunities, misuse of your will or your power, delays, inaction, so that lack of movement, lack of control, sort of failing to get a hold of the reins, or failing to control the horses or the sphinxes, and also like a hollow victory or a pyrrhic victory. How would you add anything to that, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I'm somebody that doesn't read reversals, but because I can see the shadow within the cards anyway. But yeah, you touched on a lot of it. But for me, it's about that sort of perseverance through things. You know, interestingly, just to say as well, because you was talking about the synchronicity of everything. This being a chariot year, today being the 7th. You know, your birthday being the 7th, and I was talking to Kelly, and on New Year's Day, my first card for the year was the Chariot, and then Kelly asked me that day if I'd come on and do it, and I was like, wow, you know, and I just wrote down the words in my my little journal, my little journal here, for that first card of the year was to harness my fighting spirit, and my card of the year, which again using the numerology of adding the numbers together of 2023 to my birth date and month, was temperance. And I was talking about how I really wanted this year to get more of a balance, you know, and take more control and not doing things like splurging and, you know, and kind of reining things in a bit. So I thought it was really interesting, and that I came up as the first card pull of the brand new year. But yeah, also, you know, I would add, you know, the control of your kind of emotions and your thoughts as well with the Chariot. And then what and I guess it's how I learnt the tarot, basically, you know, through using key phrases and keywords. But for me, it was always about, once you've found your path, so find your path and then stick to your path, because it's so easy to be pulled off course, you know. And I am somebody who's very sort of, oh look, you know, and I have the greatest intentions of, this is where I'm going to go for this year. And I always say I never set New Year's resolutions because I never stick to them. But the reason why I don't is because I tend to, anything that's new and shiny, I tend to go after. And I have a path. But for this year, for me, I really do want to try and stick to the path without being pulled off course. In terms of kind of like the shadow element for me, it's you have to be careful, because the Chariot card also talks about, you know, having goals, and again, staying on course, staying on path. But that kind of human desire to want to win, you know, and there's nothing wrong with being a winner, but you know, that can override everything else if we're not careful. The desire to win, come what may. And what the Chariot reminds us quite clearly is it's okay as long as you're in the driving seat. You know, if you're the one that's in the driving seat, it's your journey, it's your path. You're in control, but you need to keep control. So they're the kind of initial thoughts in terms of what spring to mind to add to yours.
Like your personal thoughts around the Chariot itself.
Mm.
I'm just gonna actually, that was really great. Actually, I hadn't thought of the idea of perseverance, but that makes sense. And actually, it also makes me think of the Seven of Wands and that idea of perseverance and sort of holding your ground. And this, we'll obviously get into this in the Seven of Pentacles, and that sort of pausing a moment before you then possibly persevere into the eights and continue the work, you know, going the course. So there's a lot of that sort of makes sense, I guess. So if I just again show the Smith-Waite version of the Chariot for a second, I just want to talk a little bit about the symbolism in the card. And this will obviously vary depending on who you're listening to, who you're reading about. And I've read all sorts of different interpretations of the symbolism in the Chariot card, from the very sort of stripped back and sort of mundane and simple almost, or not reading too much into something. So, Camellia Elias's thoughts around the Chariot puts in mind where she talks about the pauldrons to her. It's simply just a warrior wearing pauldrons, and it links him to being a warrior, whereas some people want to layer sort of esoteric stuff on top of it and saying, well, the sun and the moon are linked to the celestial realm, and then you have the starry canopy above, which again you have this heavens above him, and he's, you know, some sort of links to the heavens. So your mileage may vary on how much you read into that. There's also a lot of information about the sphinxes or the horses in the Chariot being linked to Plato and his chariot of the soul in his Phaedrus discourse. And the white horse is, you know, everything that is, you know, good. I've got a quote here from Phaedrus. So it says, first, the charioteer of the human soul drives a pair of winged, and I've put in brackets winged horses because they are sometimes depicted as winged. And secondly, one of the horses is noble and of a noble breed, that's the light one, but the other quite the opposite in breed and character. Therefore, in our case, the driving is necessarily difficult and troublesome. So it's talking about it being a symbol for your will and your soul, and trying to there's that balance and that staying on course that Simon was talking about with regards to the horses or the sphinxes. And also you can see here there's actually a lot going on. It seems like it could be quite a simple card at first glance, but in 78 Degrees of Wisdom and other texts that I've read as well, Rachel Pollack breaks down all the little different bits, and she says that each piece links the Chariot to all the previous cards that came before, because it's the first seven, the first ending of the 3 rows of 7 in the majors. This is the first ending. And so the wand that he's holding links him to the magician. The water, the sphinxes, and the sort of veiled canopy will link him to the high priestess. The stars on the canopy and on his crown then also emulate the empress. The city behind him, it relates to the emperor. The pauldrons that are on his shoulder, you know, the shoulder pauldrons with the sun and the moon, are linked to the high priest of, I can't remember where it is, some high priest, which then would have links to the Hierophant. And then you have the lingam and yoni right there here, which represents the lovers as well as balance and yin and yang and all that stuff. So you can see that you can, if you want to, tie it into all the previous cards that came before. And then, you know, that varies very differently if we're looking at a Marseille, where you can see the horses are actually both looking in the same direction. They're both looking to the left. And you can see that there is no lingam and yoni, there is no water, there's no city. It's because a lot of this symbolism in the Smith-Waite has been layered on, because it's, you know, it's been taken from, I think it was was it Eliphas Levi or was it Ataya? I can't remember who first started to layer this stuff on. You have Court de Gavilan, who also did a bit of that, and then you've got the Golden Dawn and the work that Pixie and Waite did, and then later down the line that was sort of the same Golden Dawn system, which was reinterpreted or sort of reimagined by Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Harris. So you can see there's a lot more pared back, and he looks a little contemplative, I'd say. No stars, no yoni, no wings, nothing. But yeah, I find that really interesting. I'm just going to go through my notes. Oh, and there was something that I read that was really interesting in Cherry Gilchrist's Tarot Trumps, which is a book about the Marseille Trumps, which is the chariot can never go backward, something to ponder in its overall meaning. What do you think about the idea of this chariot being linked to all the previous cards, and sort of the way that the sort of extra symbolism gets put onto the card, Simon?
Sorry, I'm just removing a mod.
Oh.
Not a mod, a troll. Someone was like, we need a mod. And I realised I was a mod, so I could actually do it. So the last couple of 20 seconds or so, I wasn't concentrating, sorry. But what I was going to ask you, because it really stands out to me when you show your RWS and your Marseille side by side. What I used to find fascinating about the RWS is that the chariot, which we always think about movement, don't we, looks really static. The sphinxes look like they're just like sitting there posing. The chariot itself looks like it's made of concrete or some sort of heavy structure, and it doesn't give a sense of that movement. That's why I always find it interesting. I know we're going to show some of our favorite cards in a bit, where we get to see really fast moving chariot cards. But the Marseille in particular, when you said that they're both looking to the left, the horses were looking to the left, so is the charioteer is also looking to the left, and it looks like the wheels are also turning to the left. So you get that sense, even from old kind of woodblock artwork back then, that there's that movement. So I find that quite interesting. But I think you just asked me what I thought to like and I know we did this in like Jen's Playdate, where we went through the symbols of the card. But again, when you just read it like that, and Rachel Pollock is a genius, isn't she? And how she breaks everything down. When you see the symbols that appear in like the lovers cards and how it's all been brought in, I often forget about 3 sets of sevens and things like that, just because of how I am. So yeah, it's interesting to see kind of the amalgamation. And when we come on to the numerology of 7, that comes even more into play, doesn't it, in terms of how they all kind of go on from each other.
Yeah, the 3 different stages of the major arcana or the trumps. So yeah, I was rereading some bits and bobs yesterday, and reading some of my newer tarot books for the first time yesterday. And what I thought was really amusing was Jean-Claude Flannois. I have an English translation of his text that I picked up last year. He has a very dim view of the charioteer. So in the Smith-Waite tradition, come on camera, come on, don't let me down. He's seen as someone who's very powerful and in control and influential. The triumph, sometimes think of the triumphant return. It's literally the chariot of the Roman emperors and Roman generals coming back to Rome after winning in battles. Why this camera is really not doing as it's told. And Jean-Claude Flannois, who created he did a redrawing and tidying up of the Jean Noblet. I have a copy of his Jean Noblet. Talks about this character as, in a very sort of down on him way. He calls him a little king. He calls him the petty king, and that he has much to learn, and he's sort of seen as someone who actually needs to locate his will and locate his path, and hasn't actually reached that yet, whereas some people interpret him as actually already being on the path. And it's interesting you talk about, you know, the chariot in the Smith Way is made of stone, and it's very static, and the horses have been switched to sphinxes. It's all deliberate. And in Kim Huggins talks about in the Complete Guide to the Tarot Illuminati that the chariot, the charioteer, the chariot, and the horses or sphinxes are classed as being one entity, and that they represent force, reason, and control, respectively. And so they're sort of creating this one thing. They are not a charioteer and a chariot and the horses or the sphinxes. It is one thing, which I thought was interesting. And also, you know, you can see both these depictions actually. Neither charioteer is holding any reins, and that comes into the idea of the mental realm and willpower and being able to control the creatures pulling the chariot by your own force of will, whereas in other depictions you will actually see people holding the reins. The one that comes to mind, and one that I actually saw mentioned in a video I'll talk about at the end, just before we came live actually, is the Druidcraft, where a woman very much looking like Boudica is in the chariot, and she's holding onto a staff, but then she's just holding onto the reins with one hand, and it's really going. That's one that I nearly did pick for this but didn't in the end. So
Robert M. Place also refers to the union as well, but he referred to it as mind, body, and spirit, which is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I read that yesterday as well. I was like, oh yeah, like it's different trifectas, it just worded in different ways. And actually, another thing that I thought was interesting, that about this, the seven in the Smith Way is, Rachel Pollock explains it as being, it crowns that line's procession of maturation. So this is the mature point of the first row of the trumps, and yet we've got Flournoy saying this guy's an idiot. And I just obviously not all Marseille readers think the same, but it was really tickling me because it's a translation from French, and then there's this real humor about it as well, and I was sort of reading it and laughing about it because it was just really fun. And in Caitlin Matthews' Untold Tarot, which is one of my favourite books to recommend to people when they're first starting to learn to read with Marseille and pick decks, she says, in the Tarot de Marseille sequence, the Chariot precedes Justice because, of course, in the Smith Way, it has switched to Strength at number 8. And she says, this is what the good ruler must provide for the good of all. Fairness, truth, and good government. So for her, in a Marseille, it makes sense that Justice does follow the Chariot, because the Chariot is seen as this like leader, if we're thinking about sort of Roman emperors and the procession and things like that. So I just thought that was really interesting.
I was going to say, Justin's just said that he loves the Chariot in the Druidcraft. So it's
one of my favourites, but I didn't end up picking it.
Yeah,
so
it is a gorgeous card.
You've shown it. So do you want? Should we start showing some of our Chariot cards that we've picked out?
Yeah. Who's going first?
You go first, because I've just been doing a lot of waffle.
Okay.
And you've been very patiently sitting there.
Do you want me to just show them all and then you show all yours?
Or, well, we can do. Well, we can show one up each at a time, and then we'll see how we compare. It'll be like a compare and contrast. Ready?
All right, that sounds fun. Yeah. So first things first, what I wanted to talk about was like my first and my last. My first ever tarot is, if you follow my channel, you will know that my first ever deck was the 1JJ Swiss. My latest version is Vincent Petiti's deck. Again, thank you, Justin, because I knew about this because of you. And so this was the first Chariot card I ever saw, which is now 36 years ago. And this is such an iconic image as well. But I love the fact that it's almost like, same with the moon card in this deck, where it's almost split into two, you know. And again, we've got like a very static top part where the charioteer is. And then we get to see the horses, both white horses at the bottom, but the chariot is empty. And I just found that quite an interesting depiction of of, you know, we've got somebody who is steadfast, holding on, in control, but very static and composed, and then you've got these horses pulling in opposite directions and nobody taking the reins, which again, you know, quite interesting. Now my last deck is a Marseille. Even though, you know, it's not my preferred system, but this one is the Tarot de Gulliver, which came last week. It's the last deck I received, and it's a beautiful. I love the colours of this deck. It's just, I'm having a real love affair with it at the moment.
Oh, you're
but
making
again,
me I want my copy.
But again, it's true to what the Marseille images that you've shown. You know, they're looking to the left. Both horses are pulling to the left. The wheel, everything's opposite, isn't it? On StreamYard, you know, is going to the left. So, yeah, that was my first and my last, but very different. Both very different, even though first and last aren't RWS as well, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, very cool. It was interesting actually that you mentioned about the two halves, because a lot of the time you'll see in books where people talk about, they'll talk about the separation of the chariot going across the charioteer, and how that can, you've got the lingam and the yoni over, you know, the lower half, and how it represents sexuality and all this other stuff. So people will even like read into the sort of that line of the top of the chariot, which is interesting. Oh, it's too fuzzy. You all know what it looks like. So yeah, should we hold up some of our favorites?
Yes.
Cool.
Have you got a cute one?
A cute?
Yeah, I've got a cute one. If you've got a cute one.
Oh, a cute one. I do have a cute one, but I was going to sort of, well, I thought we could compare and contrast, so they'd be a bit different.
Okay.
Rather than having like, so it was just gonna be like potluck what we show.
All right, so, you ready?
Yep. Oh my goodness, that is cute.
Oh, yours is from Mr. Freeborg's deck.
Yeah, Tarocchi by Mr. Freeborg, Il Caro. So this is obviously in the Italian tradition. The reason I picked this is it's linked more to traditional depictions before we even get to the French tradition, the Italian tradition of the chariot, where you have someone sometimes in the clouds. You've got horses rather than sphinxes, and oftentimes the horses will be winged. They're not winged here, but I just thought it was quite liberating. This charioteer, she looks pretty relaxed. She's got her baps out. She's got the her back, yeah, and the horses look a little. I also like the horses look a little snooty, like you can't sit with us kind of vibe. Let me see your one again, Simon.
So this is from Old School,
So
which is Dexter Deck, and this is their first edition, which is a little mini plastic deck with copper.
Oh, I remember
really
when you
gorgeous.
got that, yeah.
But look, I look at the expression on the sphinxes. It's fist up. It's like you're going to come in my direction.
It's a cat and a dog, right? That's why they're
wearing these kind of fake head dresses, but it's just the way he's putting his fist up to it. It's like
I'd completely forgotten about this. Like I remember when I saw you share it, and I was like, I want it, and then it completely fell out of my brain because my brain.
I love this deck so much. It's just so brilliant, and you can't, you know, because it's plastic. Yeah, it's just so versatile. So yeah, I just, it always makes me chuckle as a chariot card. Just the kind of that sort of animosity between the dog and the cat. Okay.
Oh, somehow all my cards got mixed up. That's a pain. Do you want to show one of yours? And I'm just going to organise my cards again because I don't know what the hell happened there.
So this is the Old Gods Tarot, and I chose this card because there's actually 4 different chariots, 4 different gods in this deck. So here in the middle is Apollo, which is really interesting because another deck that Scylla did, Shimmering Veil, she used Apollo as her charioteer. So it's Apollo in the middle, and Apollo is the verb is to destroy. So he's kind of like the destroyer. And then we've got the top is the one right at the top there is the Buddhist goddess Marisi. I think that's from my old Buddhist days teachings. I'm sure that was how it's pronounced, Marisi, which is the goddess known as the Ray of Light, not the Madonna song, but that's now playing in my head. And then at the bottom here, so bottom left, we've got Thor, who is the Norse god of war, or law and order, you know, depending on kind of how you follow. And then bottom right is Anahita, who is a Persian goddess who became the Zoroastrian goddess Azata, which means angel.
Cool.
And I really love this deck
because going on in there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's so much, and it is a study. For me, it's a study deck as well because the book is beautifully written, but there's a lot in it.
Right, so the one I'm going to show, it's a bit hard to see because I modified mine to have fake blood all over it because I wanted it to look like it had been in a zombie fight, a zombie attack. It's the Zombie Tarot. And this Chariot card, I picked it because it just tickles me. You've got a hearse, the door is swinging open, a coffin is flying out the back. You've got someone with guns coming out the top, shooting at all the zombies. You can see the horde of zombies here. And you get this real sense of movement. They're actually tire tracks on the floor, on the ground. They're really like on the move. It feels very like go, 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 you know. It just really, really tickles me because it's just so different to you know, traditional depictions, and yet it still works. So I just really love this deck for that. It's a really well thought out deck. Okay, I've got 2 more left. How many have you got?
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Do you want to show another couple?
Okay, so I'll just quickly mention this is the other Scylla Conway deck that I love, which is Shimmering Veil, and again it's Apollo. But in this depiction of Apollo, it's Apollo's relationship with the sun and how he's tracking the course of the sun throughout the day in its journey across the sky, which I just thought was beautiful for a chariot card. If I'm only showing 2 more, I
just meant to show a couple and then I'll join in.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I just meant to catch up.
I was like, which ones? This is Fifth Spirit, which again is quite a new deck, and it's been released now, mass market by Hay House, and the card stock for this deck, if you hear that, it's just amazing. And it's very modern. But what is beautiful, and if I may, just read a tiny little bit because the book is written beautifully as well. And you might look at this and think, yeah, roller skates, you know, blah, 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 blah.
It's not just roller skates, though. It's roller derby. And I have loads of friends that either do play roller derby or used to play roller derby. So this is a really good deck for me to get to read for friends.
You'll love this deck as well. This is right
it's on my list. It's on my list.
Yeah. Once we've chosen ourselves in the lovers, you know, thinking again about that journey, once we've chosen ourselves in the lovers, the chariot pulls us up with a set of wheels. But this is no joyride. The chariot's work is movement with a mission. So before we put the proverbial pedal to the metal, we must first pause to consider where we are going. What dreams are we pursuing? What are our goals? Why? This card isn't about promotions, profits, and social advancements, not unless those things align with the opening and evolution of your truest self. For that is the Chariot's mission, not mundane successes, but the continued elevation of the soul. The Chariot invites you not into a reckless charge, but into action informed by inner knowledge. They ask you to gather all the parts of yourself and apply them to the furthering of your soul's purpose. The Chariot can't move without the cooperation of mind, heart, intuition, and intellect, which we spoke about. Receptivity and action, will and desire. With these things in balance, the way forward becomes clear.
Oh wow, that's quite the
it's really, really cool.
Oh, you just made me even more excited to go when I eventually get it. That's really, really cool.
Do you know how much it is at the moment?
Well, I had a look and it wasn't as cheap as when you got it, what you got it for.
Oh, really? Because somebody left a comment on my video saying, "Oh, I've just got it for £13," but that was a couple of days ago from Amazon.
Oh, it wasn't for me. I was looking across all the sites and I couldn't find it for that cheap. It's more like £18 where I've seen it. So I'm just going to wait and see when it drops. So
yeah, keep checking.
Yeah, but what else have you got? How many? You got another couple?
I've got 3.
Okay. I'll show another one. Or shall I show one?
Yeah, you show one.
Well, I've got 2 that I feel like come as a set. And the first one is from my Ride or Die, the one that people always think of when they when I say what's my favorite tarot, people always know what I'm going to say. And it's the Tarot of the Magical Forest. And the reason I really like this one, it obviously leans into a certain kind of reading of the Chariot, but oh, come on, camera, don't be a dick. Come on. But there's this hedgehog and they are on a wooden wagon type chariot. They've still got the little scepter or wand, but you've got these bison and they all look a bit stunned, and you can really get this sense of movement. It's absolutely going hell for leather, and I'm like, I really hope you've got a good grasp of those reins, little buddy, because oh my god, it's like the wheel. I feel like the wheels could come off. It
looks like it's going downwards as well, doesn't it?
It's got a downward motion. It's almost like it's coming at you. It's got real momentum. It's like, hold on to your butts. And I really like that, because sometimes that is the feeling of the Chariot card in a reading, which I find really interesting. And then off the back of that, complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have the Chariot in the wooden tarot, and it's a snail. You couldn't really get any more diametrically opposed when it comes to sort of the speed in a Chariot card. And here the snail itself is the Chariot, and on its back there is moss and mushrooms, and it's carrying everything that they need with them, but they are taking the time that they need. And I really like that, just depending on what deck you get, it can really inform the reading in a different way. And so I used to think, oh god, what if I'm not picking the right deck for the right reading? But I think intuitively you can sort of, depending on if you know a deck as well, you can sort of pick a bit more clearly. But I always think you end up picking the right deck for the reading if you're just sort of listening to that gut instinct. But yeah, that was all of my picks. I want to see what your final picks are.
Okay, so the final 3 are a little bit different, because I just wanted us to think, how other creators, other tarot writers and people like that kind of think about things. So I wanted to show the Chariot from the tarot of the alchemical magnum opus, and I mentioned it earlier about how Robert M. Place sees this, and the idea behind this deck is it's a distillation, really, of bringing it down. So we have here, it's very clear, because Robert M. Place's images are very clear. So we've got sublimation, and we get, you see the three alchemical symbols. So sublimation is that transference from solid to vapor. So we've got mercury, salt, and sulfur, which the alchemical essence is spirit, mind, and body in that order. But like we said earlier, mind, body, spirit. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then a chariot card that was never intended to be a chariot card. So a few people in the community have been reworking or reimagining soul cards 1 and 2 and changing them into, well, not changing them, but going through the 120 soul cards that exist between soul cards 1 and 2 and attributing the archetypes to them and coming up with their own tarot deck, if you like. And quite a few people have done it. Mindful Tarot's just done it in the last 24 hours. But here's my Chariot. And again, it's just that sense of weathering the storm, really, staying true to your path, whatever that is, fighting on, even though dark clouds might surround, but going with a sense of purpose, you know, and again, using that sort of that using your will and things like that. So that was that one. And then my last one, just to really throw us out,
Okay.
is from the Witch's Wisdom, because
Okay.
that reverses the major arcana. So the Witch's Wisdom actually, if you're looking at the number 7, they start with the world and go back, because it's the pagan way of, you know, not aiming for something heavenly. So it's actually healing, which is, again, I mean, it's a beautiful image, but again, it's like, whoop. But it becomes card 15. So card 7 is healing, but in terms of the major arcana here, this is the Chariot card, but it's card 15.
Okay.
And it's journey. So you can kind of get where they're going with that as a journey card. I mean, a gorgeous image, but I just kind of thought, well, you know, we're talking about tarot, and this is a deck that's quite universally loved within the community, and it just kind of makes us think of it a little bit differently.
Cool. So nice picks. Thank you for sharing those. So wow, we took like 40 minutes to talk about the Chariot. I was like, 15 minutes to talk about the Chariot and then we'll move on. And I'm like, yeah, no way. So first of all, I just want to go through the chat, because there's a whole bunch of people in here and I just want to see what other people's comments are, and then we'll go on to the 7 numerologically next. So I'm going to have to really scooch up here and see, because we're see who we've got in and what people are saying. Lots of people saying hello to each other. I always forget that I can also do. Oh, and I meant to say, I was laughing when you mentioned what your card of the year was, but then I didn't want to interrupt you while you were talking. But my card of the year personally is also Temperance.
Oh, really?
Or the Hierophant, depending on how I add up my numbers. I can get both. So sometimes I use both. But my last year, my card of the year was Death, and so I guess because you're adding it up, it becomes, now it's Temperance for me.
Has our card of the year always aligned then?
I don't know, possibly.
Should do, really, then.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see what people are saying. People talking about when they started reading with Marseille, or people saying they feel like they're a long way off learning Marseille. I always used to think that, actually. I was always like, I need to get my Smith weight under my belt before I start Marseille. But actually, I think Marseille is easier to learn because there's some tricks that you can use, and then you don't get distracted by all the symbolism in the cards. It can actually be quite freeing, and I find it actually a lot simpler. it seems counterintuitive because you're looking at just a number of things in a pip card, but actually it just sort of frees up your space in your mind for just the bare bones, and then you can start to get a bit more complicated with it if you want to, once you get a bit more practice with it. We've got Ivy's Grove is here. I don't know, Jennifer, Rebecca's here. There's loads of people coming in. Laura, there's so many people in here. Aquarius Al, hi Debbie. IT guy is here. Goodness, there's so many people that I have missed. I'm huge apologies if I miss saying hello to anyone. Kent of Kent, say hi Kent. Protect my energy, AC. Making sure I'm not missing anyone. Nancy of Paper Moon Tarot is here. Hi Nancy, my love. Candy, hi Candy. Are you all right, my dear? Ren is here. Hi Ren.
I've just seen that Ren says as well that she absolutely loves Gulliver.
Yeah, the Gulliver is a deck that was bought for me for Christmas, but I haven't received yet. So I was like, when Simon put his video up, going, I've never seen this before, and I was like, what? And I was like, well, I want my copy. Magnum Opus is Ren's absolute favorite deck. I've been using it for years. Candy said, is there a giveaway? Yes, there will be a giveaway. It will be I'll be giving the terms of the giveaway, but the announcement will be at a different time. Anna Astral Lady Tarot is here. Hello, my love. Robin's Reflections. Hi, Robin. Lovely to see you. Goodness, there's loads of people. I'm sort of a bit blown over, really. Okay, so people, Ren saying that they read really sort of numerologically, and that Robin agrees that the Marseille or pips are easier on their mind. So yeah, it's the way of it. Obviously it depends, like everyone's different, but for me personally, that's how I've found it as well. Okay, so let's go on to the sevens numerologically. So I had some of this. Simon was like, oh my god, I can't believe you've like gone into all these things, and I'm like, well, I had all this information. No, it's not. It's little bullet points. It's bullet points. It's because I already had the information, because it was stuff that I'd done for Tarot on Earth years ago. So I had the information, I had the spreadsheets. I just pulled it from there and wrote bullet points. So I'm going to give three sort of large systems that I usually refer to numerologically for the number 7. They give different meanings for it. So Pythagorean, which is the one that often gets used, I think, quite a lot for tarot, is seeking truth, a spiritual number, contemplation, charming and insightful, possessive or withdrawn. In Chinese numerology, the 7 is seen as lucky, so you can get that to lucky number 7. You also get that in like the fruit machines with the 777, and it like you'll win more, I think, with that. Connectivity, abundance in friendships and relationships, and metal, the material, not the music. So these are just very like Cliff's Notes versions, by the way. You could obviously look into this a lot more. And then biblical numerology has the 7 as spiritual perfection, and this is in the way that light will split into the 7 colors. You have 7 octaves when it comes to music. You have 7 mineral types, all that kind of thing. So 7 seems to be quite an important number in sort of the structure of our planet and the universe. It also stands for the union of heaven and earth, completeness and oneness with God. So that's sort of your sort of big systems. And then I picked out some of the number 7 definitions in some of my tarot books, my tarot texts. So Yoav Bendov says that the 7 relates to unsolved inner opposition of abundance and success, and disruptive instability, which I think we can see a lot in the 7, the minors especially. Caitlin Matthews in Untold Tarot talks, which is coming from a very cartomantic way of reading, talks about improvement, luck, again, like Chinese numerology, opportunity, faith, a turning point, and then goes on to say that the 7 is made up of 3 plus 4, which gives expansive stability, which is interesting because you have Yoav Bendov saying it's disruptive instability. Do you see what I mean? So there's a real like a bit of either or. And then Tom Benjamin on Tarot and Earth talks about the 7s in relation to introspection and self-reflection. And so I had a question here, which was, how do these tie in with the meaning of the Chariot? Does any of these 7 definitions sort of relate to that card? And this is a question for people in the chat to answer as well. How do these definitions I've just given tie in with the meaning of the Chariot? Do you think that that sort of ties up with the 7? What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, the thing is, for me, like you said, it depends what source you go to, what you read when people talk about numerology. So because I studied, no, I didn't study, but I had a book on numerology that I used to read years ago before, coming back into the tarot, finding this community. And for me, it was always about intellectuals, deep thinkers, that sort of thing, in terms of personalities, and people that are often perfection seeking, and could tend to be critical as well, quite critical of themselves because of that, always striving for perfection. It was always seen as a lucky number. And I can always remember my dad he couldn't drive a car because he wasn't allowed to drive a car. He had a condition called petit mal, which meant he would have blackouts. But for some reason, he rode a moped, and you didn't need a license back then. So, but I always remember he used to have this blue crash helmet, and on the back he had a number 7 on the back of his helmet. And I remember saying to him one day, there's a little fly in it, it's really annoying me. I remember saying to him one day, why do you have a 7 on the back of your helmet? And he says, because it's my lucky number. And I remember saying, why? And he's like, because it just always comes up for me. And I wish now, I could delve into that, but he's been gone since I was a teenager. Not on a motorbike, I might add. But yeah, so I've always had an association with 7, because whenever I used to see 7, I write my 7s with a stick through them.
Same, with a little fancy one.
Yeah, I've always done it. Always have. Right since school, and people always pick up 7. So 7 has always been a number that, and my old phone number was I can tell you because it doesn't exist anymore. 01773 767 717.
Wow.
I was like, yeah. So it was and it's in here, and it's a really old phone number. So 7s has always come up. So I've always kind of looked in 7s. So that's why, I always thought about these intellectuals, these deep thinkers, and I thought, well, I can be a deep thinker, but I don't necessarily class myself as an intellectual, unless we're talking about emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. But for me, in terms of what was the initial question? I've gone down a rabbit hole.
Just how does the I've turned my page over. Sorry. How do the interpretations that I just gone through numerologically?
How does it link to the Chariot?
How does it tie into the Chariot?
Yeah. So I suppose when I was talking about earlier about that wanted to win, and how that you need to be careful of that, because but you need to be in the driving seat again. It's about it's just about keeping your mind single to where you're going, and that can be seen as perfection, in terms of just not allowing yourself to be taken off course. But I prefer my kind of versions of 7 rather than those that you shared. Do you know what I mean? It's I kind of look at it differently within the tarot. I don't see it as perfection. And
I think because I think it can be quite confusing for people when they're learning the tarot. That's why I always say to people, if you're learning the tarot, get one deck that you want to use for study, and if that deck isn't super exciting to you, also get a deck that you've really drawn to, so you have at least 2 decks, at least one, no more than 2 sort of meanings books, preferably 1, and a workbook, because I feel like you can get really, really overwhelmed. And actually what I meant to keep that back up. What Ren says, I think one gets to the point where one sticks with one's own way instead of using someone else's. And this is what I did. So what I really did when I worked through Tarot on Earth is that there's an exercise where you look at loads of different numerological systems, which is why I had this information available to hand, as well as loads of different texts, and you sort of work out what all these different meanings are, and then you find the ones that resonate with you, and you create your own meanings for the 7 from all the research that you've done, which is something that I did back in 2018, and it's something that I revisited last year, back sort of in spring last year, and I redid it all. I did it all digitally. I redid the exercise, and it was really interesting to see, and I pulled in loads more information the second time round, how it had sort of changed for me. And because I've been reading Marseille for a lot longer, how I'd sort of really had landed on some of my own meanings. So I would say that I have probably pulled from loads of different sources for what works for me, and I think that's what most people will end up doing. And I think that's fine, because as long as you've got your own system and it's pulling from something, then then it works, right? It works for you.
Yeah. So going back to 2008, when I got an RWS deck for the first time, I bought this book, and it's really old and battered now, Tarot Bible, but it's a little gem. It's got everything in here, and it has got a section on numerology, and I kind of used to draw upon this, but not so much now. And it wasn't until I was thinking about this earlier and I went back to it, I was like, oh really? So it says in here, for 7, it's the number of mysticism on your life journey. So again, we can bring in that chariot there. You will encounter many people involved in healing. You have an extraordinary talent for understanding the world. Listen to your intuition for the answer to a current dilemma. And that's how they attribute 7. But interesting that card in the Witch's Wisdom was around healing. But then and I've sent this to so many people. In fact, Sandra's in the chat. I think I've sent you a copy of this over the years. This was just a little cheat sheet that I did back in 2016, I think it was. And I laminated it, and it's in so many journals that I've got. But for me, the way that I came to the 7 was that new growth, brought about by an inner conviction. And we was talking about, weren't we, kind of like the first set of 7, or how everything links on. But when you go back to thinking about, because when you think about growth, my mind automatically goes to the number 3. That sort of that direction, that new growth area. But from the 3, we then have that settling down period of the 4. We have the stability that comes. And then 5 comes in with its destructive energy and gives you that sort of disruption. And the 6 is the stabilizing again, the period of harmony. But we can't stay there. We can't stay in that period of harmony. So then the new growth comes out. But it's brought about by our inner convictions. And I was thinking about this earlier, and I wrote that because it's your channel birthday, it's that new, because I think sometimes people who might have channels and things like that, I'll often talk to them and they'll say to me, oh, I'm getting a little bit stuck with things. And I'm not saying you have at all, but we tend to sometimes go in peaks and troughs, don't we, with things. But with this being your 7th year, I think it's about this new kind of new energy, this new growth. And it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling that myself personally with the channel.
Yeah. And then the minors, I suppose. Do you want to talk about the minors briefly?
Yeah, we're gonna go into the minors next now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're going to start talking about the wands first, because that's just the way I had them set up on my spreadsheet with all my meanings on them. So I just did it in that order. So I'm going to show this. I thought we'd be finished by 6:30, but I'm like, are we going to be finished by 6:30? We're going to get through 4 suits in 30 minutes. Well, so we've got here, I'm just going to give this my description, which is in the Smith way. It usually depicts a character being attacked from below. As you can see here, we've got all the rods, and he's got a wand himself, or a staff himself. And then in the Marseille, we have a series of crossed rods with 3 either side, with 1 down the center, and then we have flowers sprouting out of each side. And this is quite typical of many sort of Marseille decks. And then I just wanted to give a couple of different ways that people describe the meaning of the Seven of Wands. So in A Tin of Tarot by Jonathan D, he says, defiance, stand your ground and triumph over the great odds. And in reversed or in shadow aspect, because not everyone obviously uses reverse, is timidity, self-doubt and indecision. And Rachel True in the True Heart Intuitive Tarot Guidebook calls the Seven of Wands a card of pride, inner conviction and resilience, which I really liked because resilience is my word for the year. And then in the reversed or low vibe, as she calls it, when pulled in low vibe, defeat, opposition and struggle. So yeah, how do you view the Seven of Wands?
So, first, just to preface it with, as somebody who doesn't or hasn't kind of read books on Marseille or anything like that, I just have my tried and tested, which is what I think the seven represents, and then how that can play out with each of the elemental aspects of the four suits. So for the ones, I kind of see that one as a standalone, because for me, you know, if I'm thinking of the others, it's more about the growth. But for the ones, there's the element of growth in there. But I think this is really where the inner conviction part really comes into play. And as you were saying there, you know, things like sticking to your guns, you know, and knowing yourself, and you know, standing strong against adversities when they come up. So yeah, for me, the seven, the inner conviction that brings about that growth into a new direction is in the one suit, because we think about the ones about that. Yeah, what is it that kind of fires us up? What is it that ignites us? What is it that we're passionate about? It's about you know, really standing firm in terms of who you are, where you want to go, what you believe in, and if there's any sort of adversity, it's about standing your ground.
Yeah, that's interesting because Zana Eve Chown in the Little Book of Tarot says that it can represent lots of small problems. So I guess you could see each rod poking up at that person as loads of like little niggling things to deal with, and perseverance, which links with resilience, I guess, as well. And that was the word that you used for the Chariot, which is interesting. And then for in the shadow aspect, she mentions distractions, giving up, and being overwhelmed. So yeah, that actually really ties in with like a lot of meanings that people give. Did you have any sevens of wands to show, or was it just me? Just me.
No,
That's
sorry,
okay. No, that
I
was
didn't
fine.
know
I
we were
left
showing
it too
mine.
late to let you know. That was my fault. But I just thought I'd quickly show, and then you can give me your thoughts on it, and people in the chat can give your thoughts on the Seven of Wands just generally, and your favorite Seven of Wands, or what they mean to you. So one of the interpretations that I find quite interesting, I'm just going to remove the comments, is the Seven of Imps, which is the Seven of Wands in the Halloween tarot. And you have seven little imps, and they are all walking up and I don't know if they're meant to be trick-or-treaters or if they're actual proper imps, but we do have an interloper who looks like they're actually in an imp costume in disguise, and they are all making their way. It looks like they're going to be going up to this house that we've got the moon looking down, and this little, obviously we have to have the cat in every single card. This person here has spotted the cat, but usually you would see, you know, one person above and then the other people below sort of having a pop at them. But in this one, it looks like they're all off to create mischief, which I really enjoy. Who knows what they're going to be up to. One of my new, like, not a new favorite, new old favorites, because I rebought this deck recently, which was in a card pull, which was in my reading for the week actually, is the Seven of Wands from the Raven's Prophecy Tarot, which in the guidebook speaks to shielding the creative flame and your passions. And this is such a beautiful depiction for the Seven of Wands, and this really just felt so pertinent to me this week. And I just think it's a really lovely way of showing you don't always actually just have to have seven wands. You can get the meaning across in a different way. and it's just, I can just feel the warmth and the glow of those 7 little flames there. Another one I really enjoy is one of my favorite decks, the Sasarobito Tarot, where we have 6 wands and the 7th wand is an axe and is ready to fight back and do what they need to do to defend themselves or to get the job done, which I really enjoy. Oh, actually, I forgot to say there was a quote in relation to the Chariot from the Sasarobito guidebook, which always makes me laugh. And it's a quote from Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, and it is, never half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing. And in relation to the Chariot, but you could also kind of link it to the 7s in general, I feel like. And a really powerful depiction of the 7 of Wands. And I don't know if I should have maybe got the pocket version because it's not shiny, but it's the 7 of Wands from the Next World Tarot by Christy Searoad, and it's such a powerful and sort of, come on, bloody thing, depiction where you have this woman here. We've got this black woman. She is sitting down on the ground. She's got candles lit, and behind her are police in riot gear, and she's holding a plant gently, and she's clearly staging some form of resistance. Here we have courage and Mars in Leo. So you've got Mars, right, which makes sense because you think of Mars, god of war, and then you've got Leo, which is very sort of out there and and yet the depiction is this woman doing this beautiful act of resistance, and I just think it's such a powerful message. Really, really enjoy it. So those are some of my, I say I could show 100 cards that I love, but we'd be here all bloody day. But yeah, so it looks like you've got a card there, Simon.
I just grabbed one because I thought actually one of my favourite cards in Shimmer and Veil is the 7 of Fire. Look at that. It's just such a, when you're talking about courage, it's fortune favours the brave, which is also comes into play. But I just love this. And how you're saying you don't need to depict 7 wands to get the essence of the card across, do you? And there's this fiery energy, but there's that chance being taken, that bravery, that courage, just to go and grab what it is you need.
It feels very dynamic, that card.
Yeah.
Really, really beautiful. Okay, so let's swiftly move on because we are running out of time. We're going to look at the 7 of Cups. So first, again, I will show them from my Smith-Waite Centennial. We have this depiction. I'm going to try and get the annoying camera to focus, as what's his chops from Hellboy 2 says. There we go. So we have 7 cups and various different sort of aspirations and material goodies, including, I'm always a little confused by this one because some of them depict a ghost and some of them depict someone with a veil over their head, which is always tickles me. And then a much more simplified, obviously, for the Marseille, we have 2. So I'll just read this description. So in the Smith-Waite, we have, it often depicts someone looking up at 7 floating cups, each containing something desirable or marvelous. And I mean marvelous in the original sense of something marvelous to marvel at. Or for the Marseille, we have 7 cups laid out with 3 along the top, 3 along the bottom, and 1 in the middle. Flowers grow out from the bottom center cup and round each side of the central one, sort of encapsulating it in foliage. And that is again pretty typical for a Marseille deck. And I will just give you some different meanings from different books. So Joan Bunning in Learning the Tarot describes the 7 of Cups card as wishful thinking, options, or dissipation. Bakara Wintner from WTF is Tarot describes it as a visceral sensation of love, which I thought was quite interesting, appreciation and affection, and things not what they seem, and escapism. And Benabel Wen in Holistic Tarot describes it as temptation, superficiality, and enticement. And then when in reverse, determination, decision, and purpose revealed. So it almost sort of gives a more positive spin when you get the upside down version, which I thought was quite interesting. So I find that, like, I had a question of like, how does this tie in with the watery association with the cups? Like, seeing, because to me, I'm, you know, the Cara Wintner's idea of visceral sensation of love ties in, right? Because you've got love and emotion and relationships. But this card I find is often a lot to do with, yeah, I quite like that sort of wishful think. I call it the overwhelm or too many choices card a lot of the time, right? What about you, Simon?
Sorry, just typing away. Yeah, so for me, when we're talking about cups and we're talking about water, we're talking about emotions and that sort of new growth, for me, it's about deeper connections. So going deeper with it, because that's an expansion in itself, isn't it? And maybe more of a commitment towards things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I tend to. That's my starting point. You know, when I'm thinking of the number linked to the element.
Yeah, I call this my overwhelm card. So I've got
Yeah,
some.
I remember one of the first lives I ever did with you was like, no, not that card. I pulled it
Yeah,
at the end. Do you
yeah.
remember?
Oh
It
God,
was like
I remember that.
I get
Yeah,
so overwhelmed by that card.
there's too many choices. I just can't deal. But one of my favourite sort of Smith-Waite interpretations is the This Might Hurt Tarot, which is a deck you got me, Simon, a couple of years ago. And you have this woman, and she's looking up at all her options. Come on, swear to God, there's camera. And it's all got some kind of plant inside. So one's got a bird, like a nest, and a bird feeding its young, and there's a bird house in one. There's a snake. You've got coins in one. Like, they all have like a different. One's got a globe in it. One has what appears to be a mortarboard hat. You know, like all these different options. But I like that they're all in hanging baskets because, you know, millennials and their plants, right? Just and her face is a bit how mine usually is, like, too many choices, not really sure what to pick. I just really it just chooses it. Heather Foley says, I choose snake. I love that. Me too. I love a good danger noodle, although they're not really danger noodles a lot of the time.
Do you know what's been happening as well?
What?
Which and we didn't talk about doing this at all. But what's happened since we've gone from the majors to the minors is you're talking very much about the RGBS version, and I've gone on to Pips.
Yeah, I think that's
You
really
know,
funny.
it's like we started off talking about the kind of like the majors. You was giving very much the Marseille and me the RWS, and now we've kind of switched, which is great because that's what challenges us.
Indeed. I just had to blow some candles out. I was like, why can I smell incense? I'm like, oh my God, my incense has been burning since I started my offerings at midday this afternoon, and totally forgot that it had been burning this whole time. Jeez Louise, squirrel brain can be so dangerous. So yeah, I'm going to show another one, which is the Seven of Cups. Oh, hang on, let me just remove this so we can see a bit better. Seven of Cups from the Playful Heart Tarot by Kitten Chops, which is it just brings me so much joy because you have these 7 different receptacles with all different drinks. You've got Coca-Cola, you've got like orange juice, lemonade, you've got cherry drink, you've got, I don't know what the one with the sweets in, just some kind of candy drink. I don't know what the little blue character in the middle is. I think it's meant to be water, and they all streaming down. I mean, I don't know if they're meant to be cups or they're on like a water slide. It's really hard to tell because the little blue water drop looks like it's about to like go sliding down. I don't know. You've got these little characters down the side just all going, I don't know.
Which is this again? Playful Heart?
Playful Heart. I mean, I feel
Yes,
like it could be a water slide because she's like, or it's just sort of very summery, but it just makes me happy. I just really like it. I don't know. It makes me smile. So I put that one in there. Another one we have, again, like a Marseille. This is the Tarot Archetypal. This is a French deck, and as you can see, we have, you know, their own stylized cups, but you still see the same layout of 3 and 3, and then something. I mean, you know, when I'm reading Marseille, depending on the context of the question and the reading, you know, you can read more than just the numerology and the suit and the element. You can start looking at like patterns. You can start looking at where the foliage is sort of spreading. This cup in the middle, it feels like it's being protected. There's lots you can read into it, which I find quite interesting. And the final one I picked out is from the Numinous Tarot. And again, I just really liked this idea of this person, and they're outside the apothecary, and they're looking in the window or in a shelving unit, and I think it's meant to be outside and looking in a shop window, and you can see all these elixirs and tinctures of varying, I don't know, they all seem quite mysterious. You've got one with a snake wrapped around, one in a moon-shaped bottle, one in a leaf-shaped bottle. I don't know, it just tickles my little witchy heart. I'm just like, yes, all these lovely lotions and potions, medicines. And it also makes me think of the Seven of Cups, of what you pick from these choices that are sitting in these chalices, in these cups. Will it be baneful, or will it be healing? Will it do you good, or will it do you ill? Because, you know, all of these wishful thinking things, you might think you know what you want, but, you know, when they say be careful what you wish for, you know. So there's that. Any other thoughts on the
There's quite a few in the chat.
Seven of Cups? Let's have a look. We've got Seven of Cups to me about being able to see some of the possibilities, but that doesn't mean all are good or bad. That's interesting. That's what I was just sort of touching on there. Crescent Dreams Tarot. Definitely an overthinker's card, yes. Lauren, hello Lauren. The thing that always strikes me about Pixie's Seven of Cups is the dark figure in the front. They're disembodied and disconnected from themselves as they're overwhelmed with choices. Oh, Heather says, and then they turn and walk away, choosing nothing potentially, or they choose their one choice and walk away, going on to the Eight of Cups. Good point. Rosemary says, sometimes I see it as a reminder not to be distracted from your goal, but all the shinies. Very difficult sometimes. And says that in the Seven of Cups, it's debauch, a bout of excessive indulgence. Yes, good point. And Elspeth says, Seven of Cups for me is about pinning your focus and going for it. If you can't narrow your focus, nothing will get done. And that is a very good point. And that is something that I can really relate to, having a bit of a squirrel brain and wanting to do all the things. And I always have to remind myself of this quote, which is, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And my problem is that I have so many ideas and so many things that I want to do that I get overwhelmed, and I'm just so busy being overwhelmed that I end up doing nothing, which is no good for anyone.
Chris put it into a modern world perspective. He said it's the Netflix dilemma. All the options become overwhelming.
Indeed, they do. Someone said, could you compare the Marseille with the Rider-Waite, please? Yes. So here we go. So it really depends on how you're reading it. So for some people, the Seven in the Marseille is more about reflection and contemplation and spirituality, which I guess you've got some thinking and contemplation going on here. Again, you've got disruption, you've got an uneven number, but it can also be like sort of protecting this one thing. You've got the stability of the 2 3s, these two sort of numbers of creation, and this one in the middle. So, okay, let's go on to the swords, because we are getting tight on time. I know you've got another live. I want to wrap up soon. So the Seven of Swords, we have the Smith-Waite in the Seven of Swords. We have I'm trying to get it so it's not, so it's focused. There we go. The Seven of Swords in the Rider-Waite Smith depicts a character sneaking away from an encampment, holding a bundle of swords. The same card in the Tarot de Marseille is not dissimilar to the ones in that it shows 3 swords on each side with one in the center. This central card can be pointing up or down depending on the deck that you are looking at, and the flowers that sit each side inside each corner, just under sort of the sword guard and the like hilt and pommel. So, well, the hilt of the swords. And then I've got a couple of descriptions of it. So for Yoav Bendov, so here's a different version of a Marseille. This is the Squid Cake Marseille by Jess Roller. This will be coming out as a mass market version. I love that there's strawberries instead of flowers. Yep. Yoav Bendov says in Marseille Tarot Revealed that this card represents sharpness, focus, and determination, winning over an opponent where the forces are evenly balanced, and in reverse, sharp skills and determination expressed in the wrong direction. So isn't this adorable? I just love this so much. And then we have in the Sasarabito Tarot, Stasia Burrington writes, the woman on this card carries 7 swords, but the usefulness of having this many weapons on her is questionable. I'm paraphrasing here as well. I'm not reading the whole quote. She looks defiant, but also a little shifty. This card suggests deception, escapism, procrastination, and manipulation. And then in reversed, it says to be open to help from others, or something you have lost will be returned to you. And I call this the Jyn Erso card from Rogue One, the Star Wars film, because that's just who she looks like to me. But yeah, she does look a bit shifty, but we often reframe the 7 of Swords in sometimes it's doing what's necessary, right? You see someone sneaking away from encampment, but maybe they're actually doing something good or that needs to be done. You know, like when you see that quote, if you see someone stealing food or baby supplies, no, you didn't. Right? Because those people are taking something. People are struggling, especially at the moment, right? Things are really bad. If you see someone stealing nappies, no, you didn't. And that sometimes, I feel like that sometimes encapsulates the seven of Swords. Like someone sneaking away, but is it really bad? It's not always. What about your thoughts on this card?
So yeah, and I was just thinking, because this is, I think Kelly Fitch mentioned this a lot of the times and why she has a problem with RWS. I'm not saying I have a problem with RWS, but the depictions sometimes don't go with what we would know from a numerological perspective when reading pips. So if you take away the imagery from RWS and you're placed with, in this situation, 7 swords, and you're thinking of swords, being the air suit, it's about the mind, the intellect, and all that sort of thing, and then you bring in the new growth element, then for me, I always go to, maybe it's about learning, but new learning, because we're always learning, but maybe it's a time to start a particular course or studying, or for a new kind of vocation or something like that, or even developing some talents that we have had latent for some time. So it's that sort of using the mind to go into that new direction in trying to expand.
Oh, just showing something. I just while you're talking, I'm just showing something.
Shall I read out a couple of comments as well while you're showing that?
Yeah, sure.
So Elspeth says, 7 of Swords is my card to let me know illness is coming in personal spreads, or someone is taking the piss in bigger spreads. And Chris says, 7 swords for me is think outside the box. Don't try to tackle this problem head on. So the guy is taking the swords away from the enemy encampment before he fights them. Disarm the enemy first.
Oh, I like that. See what I mean? It's not necessarily a bad thing. There's also a lot that you can lean into the deception or the sort of manipulation of the 7 as well here. And that's what I like about this 7 of Swords in the Zombie Tarot, where you've got this woman, she's got a gun and she's kicking this guy down the stairs to all the zombies, and she's gonna leg it. But she's literally not so much throwing him to the wolves as throwing him to the zombies. Just there's that idea of deception. And then you have in the True Heart Intuitive Tarot, you've got the 7 swords behind the back, the crossed fingers, you've got the foxes, and it's very sort of, people, I always hate that like foxes are associated with deception and trickery or sneakiness, but it is what it is. But this person is holding these swords with their bare hand, and that's gotta like have some consequences, right? because there will be consequences to deception, which I think is an interesting. But yeah, I try to come at all of the cards from a place of neutrality and then build from that, swaying it either side depending on the context of the question. But that's again why I think I've come to really enjoy the Marseille and Pip decks, because you're sort of free from the, you know, the thing with the Smith Waite is I read with Smith Waite all the time still, is just you have a snapshot of just one particular interpretation of that card, which can sometimes sort of lock you into that interpretation if you're not careful. So that's interesting. I really think there's lots of really good comments about the sevens though. And Nancy's comment about overthinking and taking away and moving forward and stuff like that is interesting. Oh, bye Candy, my love. Sorry, I've been with Hillary. Hello Hillary. Sorry, it's been really difficult to try and keep up with the chat. So let's go on to the coins, because again I'm going to try and get this wrapped up in the next 15 minutes. Sorry Simon. So for the coins, we have the 7 looks back at, or hang on, where am I looking at? 7 Pentacles, an image of a person resting on a hoe or shovel in a moment of respite from tending their crops or garden. 7 Pentacles are growing and the person appears to be admiring their progress. And then in the Marseille, you have, try and get that to something. We have a quad of coins at the bottom of the card with a trio above, often with the single coin in the middle ensconced in failure, just often depicted this way. And sometimes it's inverted. Again, it just depends on the deck that you're looking at. Maggie Stiefvater of the Raven's Prophecy Tarot gives the keywords assessment, choice, risk, and reward. And Philip and Stephanie Cargom in the Druidcraft Tarot say that they give the keywords of, and here we actually have the 7 of Pentacles from the Druidcraft, which is one of my favorites, is bearing fruit, harvesting, clearing. That which we have been nurturing may well have reached a stage where it can grow by itself. And here we have a druid harvesting some mistletoe, which grows on trees. It's almost like a symbiotic, I'm not sure if it's classed as a parasite or a symbiote, but mistletoe sort of grows on trees the way moss grows on trees, which I find quite interesting. What are your thoughts about the Pentacles? I'll just hold some cards up just while you talk to keep it moving.
Again, this is the Earth suit, isn't it? So it's everything that's appertaining to kind of our. I always think of, when I'm thinking of the Earth, you know, you're thinking of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's that base. It's our home life, it's our sense of purpose, it's work and everything like that. So for me, it's about the expansion with that. So again, depending on who you're reading for, what the situation is, but if I was doing a careers type of reading, it might be talking about development opportunities. It could be about promotions at work, because it's that new growth in that way. Or if it's about a relationship, or you know, it could be that expansion that way. Maybe family expanding, and you know, just everything that's on that sort of that physical aspect. I absolutely love that card.
I love that.
Like little Venus flytraps.
Yeah, the ladybird feeding steak to these plants, these ravenous plants. It's just brilliant. I love it. I actually really enjoy the 7 of. I just really love the suit of Pentacles. I never used to enjoy the suit of Pentacles, and now
It's always been my favorite.
It's now my favorite. It used to be like swords and cups, and I've completely flipped. And now my favorite suits are the wands and the pence. Like, what the hell? So yeah, I'm going to cap all the elements at that, because it is 6:30 and I know we just sort of have to rush towards the end. But there was a couple of things that I listened to or watched today which was also related to the Chariot, obviously because it's a Chariot year. There's lots of podcasts, and like I think Between the Worlds podcast has an episode about the Chariot year. I have not really listened to it yet. The Queer Conjure podcast, which is quite a new podcast, I listened to that earlier. They have the year of the Chariot, which is really interesting, talking about it from a genderqueer perspective. So I will pop a link to that in the description at the end. And also our April of Tarot and Witchery, she had made a video about the Chariot year, which I just watched just before we met up before the live, Simon, and she had some really good questions for you to journal about the Chariot year. So I will try and remember to link that down below because I really enjoyed that. But to wrap up, yeah, we're going to do a giveaway. So in the giveaway, I have 3 prizes, one of which is the Tarot of the Magical Forest, because obviously it's Bay, and this arrived today just in time, right? So I have not yet had a chance to trim or edge it. But it is brand spanking new. I've taken the cellophane off to check that it did indeed have the multilingual borders, because Simon said, what if it's a new version where Los Scarabeo are no longer doing
changing a lot of them,
the multilingual borders, in which case the pouch that I have made for a trimmed version would no longer fit. And I was like, oh my god, am I going to have to make like a whole other pouch? And I don't have the same charm. I don't know if I've got any more of this ribbon. I was like, oh my god, and it's been made to match a set. I was like, oh my god. But that's why I opened it. It's fine. So you get a pouch, you'll get a trimmed and edged version by my fair hands. I'm a little worried because my hand is not in great shape these days, so I don't know how.
It's beautiful.
But I'm dealing with the wonky hand. I don't know if it's going to be quite as good. And then we have the cloth with a Tree of Life charm. Come on, camera, you piece of poo. Oh my god, camera, seriously, you're going to do me dirty like this? But it's like a deep forest green. The camera is not doing it justice. If you want to see pictures of it, go to my community page or go to my Instagram and you'll see much better images. It's got a stripy multi-green colored ribbon, Tree of Life charm, and then it's a lovely minty green on the inside. And I realized that I wanted to make this look like a little plant growing, like a little seed or flower growing up out. So that's why we've got this. This is my own personal copy to show what it will look like. It will look more, it'll look like this, trimmed and edged, although I'll probably edge it in multiple shades of green. And then to match, we have a daily spread cloth for the Tarot of the Magical Forest as well. Again, all hand appliqued, hand stitched, hand blanket stitched, dark green on the outside and then the lighter green. So that will be the prize.
I'm so jealous. I can't enter. I'm so jealous.
You've already got a Magical Forest pouch.
I haven't got that cloth though in the back. Yeah.
You've got the first spread cloth I ever made though.
Really? The one with the flying skull?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So there you go. You're my guinea pig. And so to enter, I'm sure you all want to know how you can actually enter. Comment down below in the comments, not in this chat,
not here,
in the comments below afterwards, a bear emoji for the bear cave, for the Kelly bear. And then I will be doing the announcement of the winner next Saturday, the 14th of January at 5 p.m. here on this channel. I will be doing it old school because I don't know how to use all these generator things, and I want to be able to do it so people can. I don't know how to share the screen or any of that jazz, so I will have to like write them all out and put them in a hat, and I will pull them out live. We will see who wins this trifecta of handmade goodies. Wow. Okay, so Simon has another live with Chris of Elemental Cartomancy at 7. So we're going to go. I just want to say, Simon, thank you so much. Any last thoughts before?
No, just congratulations again. It's been a glorious 7 years. I hope you continue for another 7 years at least. Thank you for your friendship. It means a lot to me, as you know. And thank you for inviting me on today. It's been fun. And I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. I'm sorry we had to rush towards the end. I think it was because we spent so much time on the Chariot itself, which was the meat and potatoes really of this discussion. Yeah. I think about it, it was a bit foolish of me to think that they would all get equal air time, I guess. But yeah, I want to thank every single one of you that have joined in for this live. I want to thank every single one of you that watches this back that couldn't make it live. I want to thank everyone that has been following me, whether it has been from the very beginning or you are subscribed today. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. I know I've been very sort of some time-ish and off and on, especially over the last few years because of the pandemic. It's been really rough being a clinically vulnerable, chronically ill being in a pandemic. It's, you know, it's still going on and it's still rough, but you guys have helped keep me going. I'm trying to put more out there for people that are interested in the shop and my pouches. I will be updating the shop either the last week of January or the first week of the last Sunday of January or the first Sunday of February. I haven't decided yet. It just depends on how much I can get done, because I'm hoping to have some new stuff for the shop as well. So keep your peepers peeled. If you want to know more about that, the best place to follow me is on my art Instagram page, which is Kelly Bear Art on Instagram, at Kelly Bear Art. You can also follow my personal one, but they will all be linked below as well, and that's the best way to find out what I'm making and when my shop restocks are. And yeah, I just appreciate everyone that's been helping me keep this channel going, who comments, who likes, who subscribes. It means the world to me. Thank you, Simon, for not only you know, coming on today and for all that you do in the tarot community, but also for being my friend, because honestly you've been there for some of the rough spots for me as well, and you've helped keep me hanging on. So I want you all to take care of yourself and your loved ones, and wishing you all the best until next time. Much love.
Bye,
And
everyone.
what you say, your thing, what you say at
Go
the
in
end of your
peace. Namaste and blessed be.
and I'll say what I always say, which is ciao.